Okay, I'd like to do another vocal lesson here in the van, and we're going to base this one. What am I going to do this one about? This one is very important. We're talking about the dance between the ear and the tongue, the articulator. So we're talking about breath management, and we're talking about pulsing or pronouncing, starting tones. Notice I'm paying a bit of extra attention there, because what I'm talking about is starting tones, the beginning of tone. Obviously, we know there's two things. We've got air involved and we've got articulation involved. Without articulation, you do not get tone. You can breathe. No articulation took place, so you didn't hear anything. As soon as I go, I've started to articulate. If I go stop, do, stone, I'm now articulating with my tongue. In case you haven't realized this one yet, look back at earlier lessons and earlier videos, and you'll notice how I've shown that the tongue is the articulating vocal muscle or vocal paintbrush, and there's many different ways of painting pictures with that paintbrush. So we're talking about how you square all that up with your air, with your diaphragm. And I found that there's two ways in which you can get involved with your air. First way is obviously you breathe in. Either way, you're going to breathe in first. And of course, you're going to do an inhale sound, which is not what I'm talking about or teaching. So usually you're going to breathe in first. Do, and then you're going to articulate. So as soon as you breathe in and you're just about to breathe out, you've got that little pause, that little moment just before you start to breathe out. Now you got look at that gap. See that gap? Hold that gap. Hold it for a second. Do, and then get your articulator ready. It starts to contract. We'll do it in slow motion. Diaphragm's just gone down. Do. And as soon as you start to articulate, use that as a key to let go of your diaphragm. Now, do. All the air is not going to come out in one go. Reason is because you've just started to articulate. So you've brought your chords together. So the air is going to come out very naturally, very relaxed. You don't have to do anything else with it. Do. You'll actually feel your diaphragm pulling upwards, relaxing upwards. Do. As soon as you've started your articulation, you can take your pressure. You can keep your sustain in that area. Do. You can take your sustain to different parts of your tongue. Do. I'm just passing it from the back through the mix into the front, back and forth, and you can hear the change in resonance. Or you can also take that sustain. Do, and now you can just rest on your diaphragm. Do, and you can still, whilst resting on your diaphragm, which is usually called supporting, do, you can take that tone whilst it's still bouncing off your diaphragm, using your tongue to direct the tension within itself to allow one area to vibrate more freely. The areas that are loose will vibrate more freely, and hence you'll get a registration, you'll get sustaining and amplification in that area. The areas that are tense are not the areas that amplify. It's the areas that are free that amplify. So when I go do, and I've kept my tongue free at the front, I'm deliberately relaxing it. Do, that's allowing the tongue to resonate, which means my tone is being sustained in my head register. If I let it go into the middle of the tongue, do, now there's a concerted effort to relax the middle of my tongue, which is allowing that area to resonate and allowing those resonances, those vibrations to float up into my mix area. And then, of course, I can allow the very root of the tongue to be relaxed after that pulse, which will allow that area to resonate. Do. So I'm going to get those lovely dark chest tones. I can allow the whole lot to release. Do. All at the same time. There, I was allowing the whole tongue to release individually so that the resonance hits some chest, hits some mix, hits some head. Plus, I'm still resting on my diaphragm. Do. Okay, so I did say there was 2 ways of getting your diaphragm involved to sustain your tone. Now, that first way was breathing in, pausing, do, and then using the pulse to start the air. Now, the other way is you can actually breathe in, and just as you start breathing out, you use that air to become part of the pulse. So you go do, do, as opposed to do. So this, the first way I showed you was like a reverse, was like a breathe in, pulse, relax. Do. This other way is breathe in, breathe out, pulse, relax. See, so it's like do, ha. You'll notice it more if you're using something like a hum, like say a H for hum. Ha, 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 ha. You're literally starting the tone with your air going into your tongue for articulation. Hum, as opposed to hum. And there's certain sounds which seem to prefer the diaphragm up attack, like hum. Very nice doing it from there. Hum, and then controlling it in your mouth. Although there's something like da, da, which is a little bit hard to go da, da, almost having to add a H to it. But if I just go da, that's a lot more comfortable. So certain sounds, do, you will start directly in your tongue and then you'll add your diaphragm to it. And in other sounds, you will start in your diaphragm, hard, and add your tongue to it. So I like to call those 2 different ways of interacting with your articulator. I'll call one of them the primed technique, which is diaphragm first. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Now that's very comfortable, super quality sound. Little puff of air just before your chords get together as well. So it's almost like a cushioning. Get a very smooth tone like that. Now if I do it the other way, do, which I call the unprimed technique. Do, do. That technique has a different quality. I could go, for instance, da, which has got that ear behind it. And then this other one, da, it's almost like less airy. It's a tiny bit sharper because what you've done is you've contracted the chords and positioned them before you started adding air. A split second before you started adding the air. And the other way, ha, you've added the air a split second before you contract it. So that's the difference between those 2 ways of interacting. I'm using it from my diaphragm, with my tongue. Oh yes, A, B, C, D, F, G. A, B, C, D, F, G. Both worth mastering, because they both come in handy. After all, we're talking about playing our vocal instrument. And with a guitar, you do not only strum in one direction. You strum upwards, you strum downwards. You play different parts of the strings. So it's the same with the vocal instrument. It consists of a diaphragm, it consists of a tongue, it consists of vocal cords. And how are you going to play those chords? You can play them in many different ways. Practice is going to make perfect. Okay, see you again in the next lesson at Super Voice Coach.